Hey friend, welcome back. For those who are new, I'm Patrina with Homegrown Florida, and today we are going to be planning out our fall Florida garden. It is so exciting. One of my favorite things to do with gardening, not just harvesting, is going to be planning. I think planning, I find more enjoyment than even harvesting or transplanting or caring for the plants. I love to plan. I love to organize. So some of this might be a little bit too much for some folks. So feel free to just take from it what you will and what makes sense for your particular garden. Last time I did my fall garden planning, I did strictly digital. And I know that there's a lot of you guys that reached out and was like, hey, I still like the manual pen to paper style for planting my garden. Well, guess what? I heard you, and I am going to do two types today. I'm going to do the manual. We're going to start out with some brainstorming, and then we're going to draw it all out manually. Then we're going to go inside, and I'm going to use my absolute favorite app, easiest app to use for those folks who really enjoy digital. But make sure to stay to the end because I'm going to share with you all of the seeds that I'm starting in my fall garden this year, all of the different varieties, and I'll show you exactly where I got them all from. So you don't want to miss that. Because this is probably going to be a little bit longer of a video, I am definitely going to put timestamps down in the description so that you can kind of scroll to whatever part makes sense for you. And then because we're outside right now, I'm going to go ahead and spray myself with a little bit of mosquito spray. This is my homemade one that I'm going to be doing a video on soon, so you don't want to miss that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as soon as you can. Hit that notification bell so that you see when this one comes out, because I know you guys have been asking for this one for years. And I did some interesting things to come up with this. Lots of different recipes and trying to figure out what worked, what doesn't work. And don't forget the face, because they always have a way of like biting me like smack dab in the forehead. Okay, so hopefully that will keep them off. So let's get started. So we're gonna start out with brainstorming, and I like to brainstorm with these little like index cards. The first thing that we need to brainstorm is our goals. Now, I did this at the beginning of the year. If you didn't check out that video, I'll put it down in the description so you can kind of see how I go about figuring out my goals. I kind of pick from like 6 or 7 different categories, but I try to do 2 goals per season. So for me, that's 8 goals. But I really highly recommend that you guys kind of focus on maybe 1 or 2 goals your first season and then go from there. Doing too many goals all at once can be really overwhelming. So 1 or 2 tops per season. Now I have a lot more, so do as I say, not as I do. What is that? Is that the saying? We're going to flip to our garden planner. If you don't have one of these, make sure to head to my website, homegrownfloridagarden.com/garden planner. It has a free electronic garden planner that you can print out. It's not too many pages, so it's not going to kill your printer, which is nice. I think there is, let's see here, how many pages we have. Looks like about like 20 pages is what it looks like. I had this printed out at Staples. But we're going to start out with our goals. We're going to go to the goals page. Now, I had, like I said, like way too many goals, but I tried to pick the 4 remaining ones that had to do with the rest of the seasons that I have growing. So we have 2 seasons left for me. It's basically fall and winter season. So I have a year supply or something to do with vegetables. For me, that is growing a year supply. For you, that might be trying a new vegetable, like maybe you've never grown broccoli before. That could be your goal. Another one I have is fruit. I have some fruit that I already purchased, but I need to do something with. So my star fruit is my goal that I need to work on. Flowers. I am going to be using some flowers throughout the garden as companion plants for my fall garden season, so I want to work on that. And then the medicinal is that mosquito spray that I mentioned that I've been working on recipes and trying to figure out which one works the best. So those are my 4 goals, and I keep that in mind mainly for the first goal, which is like what vegetables I want to grow. So once you have your goals and you have them written down, now we know what our main focus is going to be. So me, it's going to be growing a year supply. Right now, the 2 that stand out to me is going to be broccoli, and that's it, broccoli. I already met my goal for green beans, for peas. I'm not going to try corn. Corn was on my goals. I failed to meet it in spring. I don't personally like to grow corn in fall. I don't feel like it does as well as the spring stuff. And peanuts is a summer crop, so that doesn't grow this time of year. So broccoli is my main one. I did grow a significant amount of broccoli at the beginning of this year, but I want to see if I can grow even more because it did not quite equal a year's supply. It probably got me about 6 months. So the next thing that I like to do is I like to write all of my vegetables that I want to grow, or just all the vegetables basically, on some index cards. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange them on the table from the ones that I want the most to the ones that I want to do the least, and taking into account that broccoli has to be number 1. Now, just to make it a little more complicated, if you were to write down all of the vegetables, you could have like a lot of cards. I focused on the warm weather crops, so things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. Broccoli didn't quite make the list because I'm not planting broccoli yet. I technically kind of see broccoli as a winter garden, not necessarily a fall garden, but technically here in Florida you can grow it in fall, and a lot of people start it in fall, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer just because I saw a really good result of doing that last year. So all of these cards are warm weather crops. So the first thing I'm going to do is just lay them down in front of me. So I start out with dry beans, green beans, cucumbers, corn, eggplant, melons, peppers, potatoes, summer squash, winter squash, tomatoes, tomatillos, and I'm just going to tuck watermelon down there. Now, right off the bat, the first thing I do is I take the things off the table that I know I'm not going to grow. So we mentioned already, I'm not going to grow corn. I don't think it does as well. Another one that's like corn is watermelon. I don't think melons or watermelons really grow well when it comes to growing into fall. That's my own personal choice. I know people that do it, but these are two crops that I just feel like they like going from cooler weather to hotter weather. Going the opposite direction from hotter weather to cooler weather, I just don't, the watermelons don't get as big, they don't ripen, they take forever to ripen, and most of the time I hit a frost before they do. The corn kind of slows it down because the number of daylight hours slows. This one isn't quite as bad as these are real bad, and this one isn't quite as bad, so just food for thought, but that's the reason why I'm not doing those. Another one that I'm not doing is I'm not doing tomatillos. I got a significant amount of tomatillos. I'm still eating through those tomatillos. I'm not worried about getting any more right now. Let's see what else. Oh, eggplant. If you watch me on Instagram or TikTok, you know that this is one of my vegetables that I don't like. So I'm not gonna grow it. That's a perfectly reasonable reason not to grow it. So what we have left is dry beans, green beans, cucumbers, peppers, potatoes, summer squash, winter squash, tomatoes. Peppers, I'm taking off the list because my peppers made it through summer, or it looks like they're going to make it all the way through summer, so I'm not actually going to plant any new ones. I'm going to let the ones that are in the bed go ahead and just keep growing, so I don't need to worry about that one. So we are down to 7 vegetables. Now what I'm going to do is put them in order of the ones that I want the best success with, or to focus most of my energy on, to the ones that I don't care as much about. So for me, that's always gonna end up being tomatoes is my first one. Then I'm gonna go with potatoes. I got a pretty good amount of green beans, so they're not high on my list. I also got a really good supply of black beans, so that's not high. I could use some more cucumbers. Weirdly enough, I got such a good harvest, but I want some more because I freeze dried them and made tzatziki and it was amazing. So let's put that there. I got pretty good winter squash, so I'm gonna focus on summer squash. Then I'm going to focus on, let's see here. I guess I'm gonna do green beans, mainly because, not because I don't have a lot, but because I wanted to look at more varieties that people were telling me about. So that's more of a variety thing. This one just because, I guess, in winter squash I have the most of, so it kind of is the last on the list. So now we have them in the order that we want to focus on making sure that we have room for. And the reason why this is important, especially for a small garden, is because I don't have infinite amount of space. Like, I don't have hundreds of, square footage of space to grow these things. So honestly, I start at the top of my card and I start working my way down, and when I run out of space is when the stuff that doesn't make it on the list. But at least by prioritizing the ones that I really want good productivity out of, I give them the most amount of space in the best of the beds with all the things that it needs. So let's do that next. We're gonna draw it out. So in the planner, I have some areas where you can draw. So it's like a raised bed drawing area, a green stalk if you're a container gardener, and then like an arrow garden if you're into that. So we're gonna start working on the raised bed drawing, and I'm gonna focus on just 4 beds, just for purposes of show and tell here. So the first thing I wanna do is I wanna mark which beds are full sun. So these beds right here are full sun. I mean, they get no breaks, which is gonna be really important for certain vegetables. Then I wanna mark the ones that have trellises. So this guy has my arch trellis. And then I was planning, I have a temporary A-frame trellis that I'm probably gonna put right here. So I'm just gonna indicate it that way. So now let's grab our index cards, and we're going to start with tomatoes. Now I have 25 different tomato plants that I want to start. This was something I decided before this planning, and it was mainly because I want to do a dwarf variety style garden this year. I want to do nothing but determinate dwarfs to see, like, is there a dwarf that does best in Florida? So I'm growing like a lot of them. I do this every single year for multiple different plants. I love to do it. I love finding new varieties, especially with tomatoes, right? So I've got to fit 25 plants. Now these are dwarfs, and some of them are micro dwarfs. So some of those are going to go in the green stalk. Some of them are going to go in containers that I can protect if we get winter weather, like frost and freezes, which I do get a couple, which is so odd to say that here in Florida, but I do. But most of them are going to go in a bed, probably 10 to 15. You can fit in an 8x4 foot bed 10 tomato plants. You could probably fit more if you single stem them and trellis them up, but I like mine to get bushy, especially since we're talking about dwarf determinants. You don't want a single stem determinants, you want them to be bushy. So the most that I can fit is 10 in a bed. And I also want them to be in the full sun beds. That's one of the reasons why I circled this full sun. So the tomatoes I'm gonna put in that full sun bed without the trellis or with the trellis? Without the trellis, because these are determinants. I keep having to remind myself of that. They're determinants, they're bushy, they'll do fine with just a tomato cage. But if you were growing indeterminates, you would want to put them against something. I like my I call them, it's like Build-A-Bear, is what I always think of when I say it, but it's a Build-A trellis basically. It's like these little pieces of trellis pieces that you kind of put together, and it grows taller and taller, like stacking. What was that, Chutes and Ladders? Is that what we did? I can't remember, as a kid. One of those games where you like kind of build stuff along the way. It reminds me of that because you can build it as tall as you want. Now we're headed into fall, so unless you're in South Florida, maybe indeterminates aren't the best idea for you. Determinants are probably a better solution because they're gonna stay shorter, they're gonna be easier to protect for cold weather, and they're going to produce a lot all at once, which is beneficial if you're like me where you get some frost and freezes. So let's put these guys down. So here is our 4'8" size bed. You can see the squares right there. I'm gonna put one in this corner, one in this corner, one in this corner, one right here, and I always put one in the center. That's where we get 5, and so we just do the same for the rest of them. So that takes care of our tomatoes. So next up is potatoes. Potatoes, they like full sun as well, and this bed right here is kind of like, it's almost like partial full sun because this side gets shaded and this side doesn't. So I'm thinking I'll put my potatoes here, and I'm gonna just put them all through here. Need kind of a good area. Now the thing I need to think about here is eventually these are gonna have to get dug up. So whatever I have on this side of the bed needs to be something that I can dig up around. So that's something we need to remember. The next one is gonna be cucumbers. Cucumbers need a trellis, okay? So here's what I'm thinking. I've got 2 beds with 2 trellises left right now. One's the A-frame trellis, which they do very well on. They don't need a really secure arch trellis. So I'm thinking, oh, I also have summer squash and I have green beans. I'm trying to look at, like, I got winter squash. I got a lot of trellising plants. So I think what I'm gonna do is, because cucumbers are lightweight, I'm gonna use my temporary trellis to grow these guys on instead of my arch trellis. My arch trellis is more sturdy. It'll handle the heavier vegetables like the winter squash, and actually the green beans, which get quite heavy when they're like very, very full. I did not expect that. Cucumbers, not so much. They stay kind of tall, lanky, spindly, and they grow so fast. Like a cucumber's ready in like less than 4 or 5 days. Once it has been pollinated, it's like 4 or 5 days and you're picking cucumbers. So it's not like a heavy hold on the trellis, so I feel like that trellis will do nicely. I don't want to do a whole bed of cucumbers, so I think I'm just going to split it right down the center here, and this side of that temporary trellis I'm going to do cucumbers. And so we can put that card down, and then the other side I think I'm going to do the summer squash. Now the summer squash that I grow is not vining. I grow dunja almost exclusively now. I'm probably going to do another patty pan. I'm just glutton for punishment over here, guys. I love patty pan squash. It's my favorite squash. Well, no, technically, if you've been around, you know that chayote is, but I'm just not having a lot of good luck growing it. But from the ones that I can grow, patty pan is one of my favorites, but I haven't found one that just really loves to grow down here, but they do pretty decent during fall. So I'm definitely going to grow some patty pans. But the patty pans and the dunja that I like to grow, they are both bush styles. They are not vining styles. But this is the only space I have, so I'll just tuck it underneath there, and I'll have to like dig through a trellis to get to it. No big deal. Next up is going to be green beans. We got dry beans, and we've got winter squash. So I have an arch trellis. I know the green beans do good on that arch trellis. My tough part here is those dry beans. You know, I could just grow bush dry beans. The reason I'm thinking of this is because I don't want to mix these two together in the same bed, because it's going to be really hard to tell when these guys are at green bean stage which one is the dry beans and which one is the green beans, because they can get mixed up. So I'm thinking I need to put them in separate beds, but we're running out of space. So I'm thinking I'll just grow bush varieties of the dry beans, and I will keep growing my pole varieties of the green beans because I love them so much. And I'll put this with the arch trellis, and I'll put this by the potatoes. Now you see why it's so important to me to kind of draw it out, because you can think through these things as you're drawing. So we put our green beans here, and we're going to do both sides of the trellis. That takes care of that. And then over here on the potato bed, I'm going to do dry beans. And this kind of works out because the dry beans take pretty much the same amount of time as the potatoes. These guys are 90 to 120 days, and these guys are 120 days. And so even if I let the potatoes sit a little bit longer in winter, it shouldn't hurt them. Or if I pull the dry beans out a little bit early, as long as they're mature, they'll dry off the plant. So win-win either way. And then the last thing we have left is winter squash. I can put that with the green beans. And in fact, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm actually going to only do the winter squash. I'm also only going to do bush styles for that as well. I've been wanting to grow my Trevoli squash again. It is a spaghetti squash that I really love, and it grows so well down here. It is a hybrid. There's another one that I was told about. I think it's called Angel Hair, and then there's another one which like a mini one, which I think would be even better. So there's a few of them that are bush style that I want to try to grow, and they will grow nicely. So the green beans are going to grow up over the arch, and then I'll just put the winter squashes in the center there. So now the next thing we have to do is we got through all of our cards and we found spaces. Isn't it crazy that we were able to fit all of the vegetables that I wanted to grow in just 4 beds? Like that, I think is pretty amazing. And honestly, this is spaced pretty wide. This is not spaced tight. This is spaced very far apart. Those tomatoes, it's 32 square feet, and we're growing 10, which means each one's getting 3 square feet. Everywhere says 12 to 18, right? I like to give them even more space because they're going to be bushy. So you can imagine that this, you could fit even more in if you really wanted to. But I'm trying to keep things where everyone has lots and lots of space to grow, mainly because fall has less light, it has less resources, it's a little bit colder, everything grows a little bit slower. So by not letting it have to compete with other plants, I'm giving it its best possible chance of success here. All right, so next up, we have to think about all the other little plants that we want to grow. Let's not forget that one of our goals was to do some flowers, right? So now I've got to fit in some flowers into these beds. Oh, thankfully we have plenty of space, but we also have to think companion plants. So this is where I start filling in little spots and parts with things that I know do well companion wise. I want to try to pick a companion plant for every single one of these, and I'm going to aim for some of them to be flowers. So let's do that. So for the tomatoes, I'll be pulling out all of my perennial green onions. So these are gonna be green onions. I'm gonna put these like pretty much all over the bed, right? I did a giveaway not too long ago where I gave 10 of these to some winners of it. I hope to do another one of these. I love giving these away because they're just so much fun and they replicate so quickly, like you'll never need to ever buy onions again. And they make an incredible companion plant as well. So by putting them all around the tomatoes, it works out well. You could also use marigolds or basil, although basil isn't quite as cold sensitive or as cold tolerant, but nor are tomatoes. So if you put down the marigolds or the basil and the tomatoes got hit by a frost, it will kill off those guys too. But it's gonna kill the tomatoes too, so you don't really need a companion plant at that point. Next up, the winter squash. I found that this time of year, I circle them in radishes. That works so well to keep pretty much all bugs off of them. So I'm just going to circle them in radishes. Over here in the cucumber and the summer squash, I want to do some flowers. Flowers. So I have to think about flowers that are kind of cold tolerant or can handle some cold, that will at least grow in some cold. So sweet alyssum is one that's a pretty good ground cover. Which would be good for a ground cover? Not the potatoes because they get really, really bushy, not the dry beans because they get bushy, but the cukes. The cukes would be good because the cucumbers are going to grow up the trellis, so there's going to be some open space on the base. So let's put our sweet alyssum, I think that's how you say it. Let's put that right there over here. So we're going to grow them in that spot. This here would be pretty shaded out by the cucumbers, so I'm not going to worry about those. The next one is going to be calendula, and I need a lot of calendula, so I'm actually going to take this spot up here, and I know I just said these get really bushy, but don't worry, calendula gets bushy too. Or calendula, I always say it wrong, but anyway, it grows pretty tall up, so it'll grow above the tops of those potatoes and those dry beans, so I don't worry about it, and I can do a whole line and it will grow the whole line there, and that's a pretty sunny spot of that particular bed. So I think calendula will go there. And on the summer squash side, I think I'm gonna grow a line of chamomile. Chamomile is really exceptional as a trap crop. So anything that wants to go after these summer squashes or those cukes are gonna be drawn towards the chamomile. The radishes are gonna push them away. The onions are gonna push them away. The calendula doesn't really do much for bugs. They don't really care about it, but the chamomile they will, and the sweet alyssum, it will, kind of draw the pollinators into the cucumbers. The chamomile will draw the bugs into it, and hopefully we'll accumulate all the bugs over here. We'll accumulate all the pollinators here where all of our flowering plants are. We'll keep bugs out of this area and out of that area, and I think that that's a pretty good plan. I'm always a little iffy of what kind of flowers to grow in winter because I just feel like there's not that many that are super cold tolerant that are annuals. There's a lot that are perennial that are, but they don't grow that well down here, not through summer. So I don't know. If you have more ideas, make sure to head down to the comment and let me know because there's a couple little spots I can squeeze some stuff in here. All right, so guys, that gives us what we're going to have in our garden for the fall season, and that was not too bad. What did that take us, 15-20 minutes to completely brainstorm and draw it all out? Yeah, no time at all. Now what we have to do is use the next part of our planner book, which is we actually have to put it in our schedule. So we find the page with plant planner, and then we take each one of those items and we're gonna put them on here. So this section has date, plant, quantity, whether you're sowing seeds, transplanting, direct seed, those kind of go together. The number of days to germinate, spacing, and harvest date. Feel free to fill out however much you want. You don't have to fill out everything. I like to use this as a schedule. So when it comes to the first item on our list was tomatoes, right? We seeded those. I didn't direct seed them. I sowed them somewhere towards the end or beginning of August. Let's just call it August 1st. I can't remember. I'll go inside and get the actual one. So it's our tomatoes. I did 26 plants, I think. And then the days to germinate, it's only about 7 to 14 days. Spacing, I want to do 36 inches apart, but you can do, like I said, 12 to 24. And then the harvest date is going to be about 120 days to harvest is usually what I think. But you can look at your seed packet. Your seed packet's going to tell you that. But that tells me the date that I need to sow them. I need to transplant them about 6 weeks later. So that's like 9/15. The next one on the list was potatoes, right? Potatoes. Now I want to do, let's go back to, let's look at the spacing we had on our beds here for the potatoes. We were going to do these, and we do 1 square foot per potato. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We can fit 16 in that space. So we're going to have 16 plants. Now, when are we going to sow our potatoes? If you're not familiar, because potatoes don't actually have seed packets for us to look at, we can come to the back of the book, and it has my charts of when to start plants, when to harvest them, right? So if we come to fall, we come down to potatoes, and it says potatoes should be started in October. They don't get transplanted, so we don't have to worry about that, but we're going to direct seed the potatoes in October. So we're going to come back here, and we're going to just put October, and we're going to do, instead of sowing the seeds or transplanting, we're just going to direct seed them in October 1st. Days to germinate, this is just off the top of my mind. You might have to Google it, but it's usually about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Spacing, 1 square foot or 12 inches. And the harvest date is 90 to 120 days. There are some that are much longer than that, like a russet is going to be much longer than that, but I like to go for new potatoes. My favorite is the cow white and the golden nugget, although the huckleberry gold worked really well for me last spring, and they seem to be holding up the longest than any other potato I've ever grown. I harvested those, what was it, April? I still have potatoes, I guess 4 months later, not a single sprout on them. So that's a win for me. And they're just they're not in any refrigerator. They're not in any cold room. They're literally sitting in my laundry room. So that just goes to show you. So we're just going to keep going down the list doing that same process. And then all you have to do is each week you come in here and you go, oh, we did the tomatoes last week. So we can mark that off. I don't need to worry about that anymore. Potatoes, I just look, oh, it's not till 10/1. I don't have to do that this week. And I just keep going down my list and looking at what needs to be done that week, what has been completed, and what needs to be completed. So make sure to get you this copy. It has everything you need to do to plan if you are a manual planner. Now, if you are a more digital person, likes the apps, like the technology, let's head inside. I'm going to show you the way that I love to plan my garden. If you want to know all of the varieties that I like to grow here in Florida, make sure to check out my book, Homegrown Florida Gardening Guide. It's in an electronic form, so it's an ebook. You can find it on my website at homegrownfloridagarden.com. It has 30 chapters, a chapter for each vegetable, 130 pages. You're gonna love it. It talks about everything from planting, harvesting, cultivating, everything you ever want to know. So now we're inside and we're going to be talking about digital planning. And this is like my favorite. I did the manual planning for a long time and it was good. Like when I had like 2 to 4 beds, it made sense. But now that I have like 9 beds, 5 green stalks, in ground, front yard, it just gets too much. So if you have a decent sized garden and you are growing a lot of different things, I really think that you should give Seedtime a try. It's my favorite. Now, when they first came out, I know that there was some hiccups, some little burps. So if you haven't used them in a while, you really should try them out. The thing that I really enjoyed about them was that Seedtime, the company, started out as kind of like a tech company, and they just had a bunch of gardeners like join as like testers, and I was one of the testers. I came in real early, and the reason why I did was not just because I'm a gardener, but because that's actually what I used to do in my corporate world. Before I retired, I was in IT. Specifically, testing software was a large portion of my career. Innovation was another portion of my career, building something new that somebody else had never used before. So those two things, I was like, oh, I'm totally geeked out. I want to do that. You know, I was fresh out of my company, so I was like, man, I want to do something that's still, you know, in that sphere of world. So when they came out, I was like, oh, I'm definitely going. So to get to the website, it's seedtime.us, not seedtime.com, but seedtime.us. You can sign up for a free plan. I'm going to put the link down in my description. If you use my link, it kind of helps me out and helps the channel out a lot. So I'd really appreciate it if you would. But they have a free option, they have paid options. I'll try to mention as we go through what things are paid and what things are not. There is still a lot of functionality on the free version. And in fact, for like the first 2 years of Seedtime, I used the free version. I got into the paid version because they came out with a layout where you could draw out where your stuff is. That is part of the paid version. So let's jump into it. So you have your startup here. There is a trial period if you wanted to do the paid version, but if you didn't, you can just do the free version. It's going to pop up stuff like to pay, but you can just no thank you or skip that or whatever, and you can get to it. But I'm just going to log in because I already have my stuff. So as you can see, I actually already started putting stuff in here. You can see I have a lot of stuff all the way from, this is my May up here, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Yeah, you can see I got a lot of plans for fall and winter. So this first page right here is the calendar page, and this is actually where you enter all your crops. So because we have our list here, we just start out with the first one and we work our way down, right? So I'm going to start out with tomatoes, and I'm going to show you how you set this up because it is a little bit different for people here in Florida. If you're not here in Florida, or if you're in the north part of Florida, like if you're in the Georgias, the Carolinas, if you're out in California, if you're, you know what, you guys, we have definitive frost dates, right? And so the northern states, I call them northern, everything is northern to me, technically, except for, you know, like South Texas, you guys kind of fall in with us too because you don't get frosts. But, you know, North Texas, Central Texas, you do kind of get some cool weather there. So anyone who gets frost can follow the first way I'm going to show you how to do it. It's the simplest way. It's what Seedtime was based for. But there is a second way for those of us who live in areas that don't have frost. South Texas, South Florida, South California. I'm thinking of you guys because you don't get frost. You can grow year round. So it kind of takes other things in consideration when it comes to your growing zone. So keep that in mind. I'm going to show you both ways just in case. But for those of us in the deep south where we just get a couple of frost, we can grow through the winter and we can protect certain crops from those frosts. But for our friends here in areas where I live, maybe not South Florida, but like Central and North Florida, you can grow all your winter vegetables, all your cold season crops and not protect them at all. I don't. They might get a little bit of burn, a little bit of tinge from frost, but they tend to grow just fine through it. I mean, I've grown lettuce, broccoli, kale, onions, garlic, all strawberries. I've grown them all in 23 degrees for a couple of nights and they all survived. Leaves looked damaged, definitely didn't look great, but they all produced beautifully. And in fact, I think it was like my best year. The frost just sweetens everything up a little bit. But let me digress and let's jump into actually adding our tomatoes. So we're going to come up here and we're going to hit the little button that says add crop. It has categories here. I'm going to type in tomatoes. And I'm picking determinate tomatoes because that's what I'm growing this year, but you could pick your indeterminates if you'd like. And then you can select your variety. I'm going to pick Tiny Tims because those are on my list. Here's a label. You can put anything you want in here. Sometimes when I was on the free version, I would put like what bed I was putting things in. But when you get into the paid version, you can actually, it will do that for you when you show it in the layout, which I'll show you in a little bit. You can pick a color. I really don't care about this. Now, here is where you schedule it, right? It's these areas. If you are in the South and you don't get frost, I highly recommend to use the AI tool. The AI tool is going to help you find the best date for your location, not just based on frost date, but based on your climate and the things that are best for your area, like based on states and all kinds of things. It uses artificial intelligence from the web to figure out these dates. Now, I use this a lot, like in my summer, when I was planning out what I wanted to grow for fall, I was doing it during summer. And if I were to use the traditional timing that it did, it would tell me to just plant everything I ever wanted that particular day, which in August, you can't be growing lettuce in August. It wasn't thinking about how hot it gets here. It was only considering the frost date. So I use the AI side when I'm sitting in summer, and I know I can't really start these things in summer. And it goes out and artificial intelligence tells it like, hey, she can't grow that. She can't grow lettuce, even though it's after my frost date. Yeah, sure, I could do it. It's like, yeah, no, she can't grow it during that time. So it gives you a date that's a little bit cooler. That's where artificial intelligence is really cool. This is the new part of that app that I find really, really cool, especially for us Southern growers. Just adding that little feature, just game changer, guys, game changer. But say you're more traditional and you go by frost dates. So all you have to do is come down here. We're going to skip over the AI date. All you'd have to do is hit find date to get that. But we're going to say tomatoes are going to be transplanted and they are a warm season crop. All that's already filled in. It kind of already knows that. I'm going to hit seeding and you can make choices here. You can say do 7 days to frost relative to the frost date, and we're doing fall winter gardening. And that tells it that we need to backdate from our predicted last frost date. You can also do it manually. And if you're trying to schedule for next year, you can use this drop down and actually pick spring or summer, and it will do it for the next spring or summer. But we're doing fall and gardening right now, or fall and winter right now, so I wanted to pick fall and winter. You can say that the seeding takes 7 days, and you want to start 26 days before your first frost date. Me personally, it's doing 26 here because it thinks that the tomato needs 26 weeks, which it does, right? It needs 26 weeks for full growth and to get your harvest. And it's trying to do that 26 weeks before I hit my first frost. The thing is, down here in Florida, I can grow tomatoes through frost. So I just protect them for the 1 or 2 nights where there's going to be a frost. And then the rest of the season, it's nice and cool. It's like 70 during the day. Sometimes we drop into the 40s or 50s at night, but they can survive that. So for me, 26 weeks is way too long. That's why I used a lot of the AI dates for my particular weather. But like I said, if you're north of me, this is an excellent thing because you're not necessarily always going to be trying to protect plants like warm weather plants in the middle of winter. So you would want to keep that 26 weeks there. But if you're like me and you protect them, or maybe you have a greenhouse, or, there's a lot of different things. I think there's even, where's it at? Winter gardening. I think there's even a place where you can say, okay, I'm going to put 2 covers on my plants. And it takes that into account in some way, I think, with the AI. So let's just say, let's let it do its thing, and we're going to see what it comes up with for this Tiny Tim tomato. The rest of these are other tasks, like it tells you 7 days before you need to do your bed prep. It tells you 56 days after you seed them, we're going to transplant them. These are all going to end up being reminders that are sent to you. Cultivation just means like when you need to feed them, when you need to treat them for bugs. You can create tasks yourself. So if you didn't like the word cultivation, you can get rid of that. You can add, here's when I need to feed it, here's when I need to treat it for bugs, and create your own task. And then it gives you all the way to when you're going to harvest. So the days to maturity is 68 days for this particular plant, 68 days after transplanting, and you have about 60 days or 56 days to harvest all the tomatoes. So let's go ahead and schedule that. You saw I didn't change a lot. I just put my tomato, I put my variety, and then I let it do the work for me. So we're going to type tomato in right here, and we're going to look for our Tiny Tim tomato right here. And so basically what it did, as you can see here, is it was trying to get us to start our Tiny Tim tomato way back in June. Well, June has already occurred. So you can see how that when you go based on the frost date, that it backdates it. Even though you didn't do it then, it backdates it. So what I'm going to do now is I can adjust it. I think you can, I haven't done this, but I think you can just grab it and move it. Oh, look at that, you can. So let's just put it August 1st. So it says, hey, without this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, it's all right. I want to move it there. And it will shift all the rest of the things. I'm just bringing up the Tiny Tim right now. So we see, I shifted it saying, I want to start it this week or last week or whatever it was. And you can see I have the seeding the tomato, and then it tells me, oh, get your bed prep done by the end of the month. And then we're going to transplant them the first week or second week of September. And then it has all the different cultivations. And then it looks like we'll be harvesting this guy in November, the Tiny Tims. Isn't that cool? Manual is another option. And if you don't want to trust the system to come up with it, or if you waited too long and your frost date has passed, or your predicted frost date's too close and it doesn't always know everything, like whether you're going to protect something or not, like in my space, you can just come to manual and pick whatever date you want to start, if you would rather own that. And then it will schedule out all the rest of the tasks, from bed prep to transplanting to cultivation to harvesting. So we're going to update that. And then you can see it all right here, just as before. So that's how you set it up. The next part that I love is the layout. So I have my layout here, and we're going to add some plants. So you can see, here's my beds. Here's the 4 beds that we were talking about outside. If you were watching that part of the video, we drew it out outside, and it's a little bit different inside here because these are all the crops that I have there right now. So if we look at what crops are in the bed, in those 4 beds, I still have some sweet potatoes that need to be harvested. I have some bell peppers. I call them bell peppers, but it's the equitos. They're not a bell pepper. They're just a sweet pepper. And then I've got peanuts that need to be harvested, right? So we're going to come out to, like, let's call it September, and see what parts of the bed are available. Here we go. The way this works is, like, I put Tiny Tim. I have 2 of them in there. Sorry, guys. One that I had done before and one that we just did together. So this is the one that we just did together. And so we have the seeding. You can see the bed prep. So you're not going to actually be able to pick it until it's time to transplant. So I get to the part where it's allowing me to transplant, because it's not going to take up space in the bed yet. So the way that you need to think about this is, if it's grayed out, like, let me show you. If it's grayed out like here, that means that those tomatoes don't need to be in a bed yet. They're seeded in trays. Even the bed preparation, there's not space that's needed. You can do your bed prep, you know, by putting down whatever. If you wanted to put down fertilizer, if you wanted to put down mulch, if you needed to clean out the bed, all that stuff. So what it does is it doesn't become live until the time is when it needs to be transplanted. So you need to move along this calendar from week to week until you get to when it's going to be transplanted, and then it becomes live for you to pick. So we can take these tomatoes and we just grab, click, and drag. And then if we wanted to put multiple tomato plants, you just kind of use the little bars and pull them. And then we have a whole bed of tomatoes right there. Now you can change the plant spacing. So you just click and drag and it will do the spacing for you and how many that you can fit. Now its spacing is always like kind of middle of the road. So if a tomato is 12 to 36 inches, it's going to put 24. So that's something you need to consider. If you want to adjust your spacing, you can do that right here. You can adjust your row spacing. You can adjust your plant spacing. I do square foot gardening, so it doesn't matter to me. So I don't use the row spacing part. But if you have an in-ground one, or you do care about row spacing in your beds, I don't know why you would, but if you did, you could adjust your row spacing there. So then we have our tomatoes in here, and say in January, We still have tomatoes, we're still harvesting, but then February comes, we get a cold frost or a cold or whatever, it takes the tomato plants out. They're basically gone at this point because the harvest window has ended for those particular tomatoes. Tomatoes don't live forever, they're not perennials, so they have a shelf life or an end date to the plant. So when that shelf life or end date comes up, that bed now becomes available. And as you move through the months, you will see which beds are available when, based on when those plants are going to expire. So as I move through, you can see right between those two dates, I had some watermelons. The watermelons will expire. And then we'll lose, let's see, the next one is going to be, oh, we gained the tomatoes right there. That's the sweet potatoes. We harvest our sweet potatoes in October. Then we harvested our peanuts down there. And then you just slowly, oh, we lost our winter squash right there. Stuff starts to become available as the months move on. And it seems a little weird as you're getting used to using it, but it really is beneficial to know that when I am in August, the first week of August, these beds, these certain ones that have stuff in them, I can't place plants there. So when you have a large garden, this is really good. And also, if you want to go back in time to see, did I plant tomatoes in this bed, 2 years ago? If you keep all of your stuff in here, you can manage your crop rotation this way by just going back and looking through the months of what was sitting in that bed at different times in the month so that you can manage your crop rotation. There's a lot of good that comes into this. It just is a little bit wonky to get used to it. But once you get used to it, it's really easy to use. You're just picking the date and seeing what is supposed to be planted in that particular bed on that particular date. So now let's jump to tasks. So tasks is probably my number one favorite thing to use because this is actually part of the app. It has the calendar feature, but the task feature is what I use the most. Now, I like to plan on the computer, but I like to work off of my phone. Like when I go out into the garden and I want to see, what I have to do that week, I just bring up the week at the top. I click it to either, what am I doing today or what am I doing this week? I usually just work on weeks. And then it tells me, oh, you need to harvest this. You have to seed that. You have to do bed prep for that. It tells you everything. And I can just hit the little button saying, oh, did it. It's like check marks. Oh, love it so much. It is right up my alley. But you can see that here. Let me pick a date in August. You can see I have all this stuff that needs to be harvested. I have, my strawberry plants. It's seeded, but they're not really seeded. They're transplanted. Then I have tomatoes. I got winter squash, harvesting my Puerto Rican black beans, harvesting my Tramonchito squash. It has everything that I have coming up. So if I jump down to September, you can see all of these things, all this bed prep for the tomatoes, all the direct seeding of those green beans we talked about outside, the transplanting of all the tomatoes, seeding my onions, like all the things that I need to do, and it organizes it for me. So I don't have to, once I plug in my vegetables like that tomato in here and I plug them all in and the dates are all selected and put in the place that I want them, then all I have to do is just open the app on my phone and look at what the task list says for me to do that week. And if you picked a bed, like let's look at our Tiny Tims, right? Tiny Tim. It tells you in the task list which bed it needs to be in. So if you put them in the calendar and then you use the layout to select which bed you want to put them in, it's going to tell you what bed to put them in just in the task list. And it does that on your phone or on your computer. It will tell you which bed to put them in if you paid for the full service Seedtime and did the layout. I love that because once you set it up, once you sit down with your computer for a half hour and you plug in all your vegetables and you mess with your schedule however you want it, and then you put them in the beds based on what bed is available at that particular time. Then you close your laptop and you don't have to worry about it ever again. You don't have to come back in here until you're planning your next season, or sometimes I will do an entire plan, as you can see here, right? I will do an entire plan for the year. I'll do winter, spring, summer, and fall gardening all at once at the beginning of the year. I will just schedule it all, and then I'll just come in here and make slight adjustments. I end up working the rest of the year off my phone using the task list. And for me, it is magical. I don't have to remember anything. I don't have to worry. When it tells me I need to seed these things, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I got to do this week. I got to seed these things. That's fine. I'll seed them. And then I just let them sit there. And then it tells me, oh, don't forget to, give them some fertilizer. Oh, okay. I look at my task list. It's time to cultivate. Do I need to fertilize them? Yep. And then it tells me, oh, now you should be transplanting. And I will say that in the beginning, when they were beta testing this, those dates and stuff didn't work all that well. Now they work very well. Like when it tells me to cultivate or to feed them or to transplant them, I look at my plants, I'm like, oh, they do look ready. Or they are starting to turn a little yellow. They probably do need some fertilizer. Or I'll look at them and be like, oh, they're perfectly green. I don't really need to fertilize them at this point. Or I'll look at them and be like, they could use another week of transplanting. And I can adjust the date on the task list right here. And it is so easy. So you set up a little bit of time working on a computer. You can do the calendar on the phone. I just don't find it to be very easy. You can't do the layout on the phone currently. So you do have to do your layout or your drawing on a computer. But super, super easy, especially if you have a large garden. It's worth paying for, I think. I do. It's worth the cost. I can't remember how much it costs, so I apologize, I don't know that. But they have deals that happen all the time. They have lifetime deals if you're into that. They have monthly deals, yearly deals, that whole thing. So check them out. Make sure to use my link below. It would help out the channel a lot. Even if you're getting the free version, that helps out the channel as well in lots of different ways. So thank you for that. So now that we went through that, there are some other things that they're doing. They have journals. So if you're the type of person that wants to keep track of different things that happened, like your favorite varieties, or maybe when was your first frost or your last frost, and you're trying to, keep track of that throughout the seasons, you can do that. I'm not much of a journaler. I did do a little bit of it back in 2023. You can see it was a little while ago. But if you wanted to, you could use a journal however you want. They also have like classrooms where they put on different courses all the time. So when you sign up for this, they are going to send you like a weekly email where they're going to tell you what they have going on. The emails are kind of funny. They're a little quirky. But they always have courses going on, and it's really cool because the courses aren't always run by Seedtime. Sometimes they're run by like your favorite gardener on Instagram or your favorite gardener on YouTube, or MI Gardener might do a Seedtime thing where they teach you something. They're doing the class themselves, and then Seedtime just basically markets their class for them. It's really, really cool. They have different master classes and stuff. The next one is they have a store where they do all kinds of things, like they sell green stalks, they sell seeds, they sell all kinds of trays and stuff like that. I'm more into the epic gardening stuff, especially for trays and products, and I'm really getting into their seeds, the botanical interest seeds. I just got some, and real good quality. I'm liking them so far. I'll keep you updated on how that's going. But if you did want to purchase some stuff, you can purchase it here. So we got that done. We can go ahead and close our laptop. I'm gonna grab my seeds. This whole basket of seeds right here is all of the varieties that I picked. I wanna go outside. I know, that's crazy, right? It's summer here, and I'm like, oh, let's go outside and enjoy it. It's hot. I'm gonna regret it once I get out there. But I think let's go find a shady spot, and I'm gonna walk you through all the different seeds that I'm growing for my fall and winter garden. All right, we found a nice shady spot. We brought the babies out with us. Bubba, you wanna say hi? Let's come say hi. Why she always shows her butt to the camera. Come here, say hi. You wanna see the seeds? I'm growing some tomatoes. Hello, Miss Chloe. They always love seed starting time. Let's be honest though, they actually prefer strawberries and tomato growing time. So let's take a look what we got going on. I'm gonna try to do it in order. Let's start out with all of our beans. I got a lot of beans. So I want to do cannelloni beans, which are like a white kidney bean kind of. I like the cranberry beans. It's a kind of like a cannelloni with a pinkish speckle on it. It's really, really pretty. You guys told me about these. I've been growing the Blue Lake pole beans. They did so good for me this year, but I wanted to do the Kentucky Wonder. A lot of you guys said that this one is even better than the Blue Lake pole beans, so we're gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna grow actually both of them, and I saved a bunch of my own, so I'm really excited about that one. All right, after the beans, we have beets. Now, I only grow one kind of beet, well, two, right? I grow this one, which is the Early Wonder Tall Top. I had the most luck with this. I also like the Avalanche. I believe it's a hybrid from Johnny Seeds. These are the Early Wonder Top from and my gardeners. These are a good, solid, normal red beet, but the Avalanche is a white. It's very nice, but I'm not gonna grow that this season. Now, from a broccoli perspective, I have two type of broccolis that I love to grow. One is Arcadia. I finally found a place that actually sells them. So this is like something I got off Amazon, not the best place to get them, but I found a new place. It's called Mommy and Me Gardens. It's an Etsy shop. They have a ton of the seeds that I like. Now, I have not tried their seeds yet. I did order a bunch. This is how they come. They look like this. I'm going to try them this year, and I will report back to you. If their seeds turn out good, guys, they might be my #1 place, because they are like, they have everything. They have all the stuff that I recommend, all the varieties that I love. Like, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I even found it. One of you guys told me about it, and I was like so stoked. But I want to check and make sure their germination rates are good before we move on to them. The other one I really like from Johnny Seeds is going to be Green Magic. Green Magic was one that I tried last year to see if it was a good competition to Arcadia. Whew, boy, is it ever. I tried Imperial as well. I didn't think the Imperial had large enough heads. The Green Magic does. It performed. I mean, these felt identical to me. I love them. So I'm going to keep growing both of them. Next up, the one and only Brussels sprouts that I found that grows in Florida is Jade Cross. I've tried Green Gem, I've tried Long Island, I've tried so many of them. Jade Cross is the only one that works. It's the only one that has ever produced sprouts for me. Next up is going to be cabbage. I'm going to be growing a purple Savoy, my early Jersey Wakefield, which I love. It's a conical shaped head. Acres is another one you could grow, but I don't think they do as well as this one does. And then the Savoy cabbage. This is a long season one, so you'll get these first, and then towards, you know, further into spring, like when weather starts heating up, this is the guy that'll start producing at that point. I just like the ruffle leaves, so I don't mind waiting on it. For carrots, I have some favorites, but there's a lot of carrots that will grow down here, and there's a few that are new for me, so I'm excited to try them. So I usually do the Caruto carrots. This is from that Mommy and Me, man. I'm really excited about them. But I also have grown the Atomic red carrots, so I'm going to do those. This is another type of Caruto. I don't know if I'm saying that right, Carote. This is called Shin Carote. There's a Cosmic Purple. I've grown that before. That's done good. Mokum is one that you guys recommended to me, so I'm trying that for the first time this year. I'm excited about that. That one came from Epic Gardening, so that's the botanical interest that I'm interested in trying more of their stuff. I love their products. I love their seed trays. I love their beds. Like, love all their stuff. But I haven't tried their seeds before, so I just started getting into their seeds, and so far I really, really like them. I'll put a link down below, and then I'm just doing like a rainbow mix. For cauliflower, I'm only growing two kinds, the two that work for me consistently, which is the Y cauliflower. It's Snowball, basically Snowball Y improved. And then Clementine, which is a hybrid. This one's from Johnny Seed. I got this from the Urban Harvest, but you can also get them from MI Gardener. But Clementine is an orange one. It's so good. I love the color. I'm into colors these days. For celery, I wish I could find a celery that I absolutely love that grows really easily down here. I haven't yet. But the one that has consistently provided for me, although not amazing, but does, is the Utah Tall improved. So that's what I'm going to be growing this year. For greens, like collards, I'm gonna grow a variegated collard. I got these from the Urban Harvest. I have 2 packs of them, so I'm just gonna pick. For cucumbers, I am gonna go with 2 types of cucumbers. I am doing my quarantine. If you were not around for spring, quarantine was by far my most productive. It is a parthenocarpic, meaning it doesn't need a pollinator plant. I love that about it. So it doesn't need a pollinator. I don't have to hand pollinate. And when we grow in fall, sometimes the pollinators are a little lacking because they're not supposed to be awake in winter. You get a few of them, but you tend to have a harder time with some stuff. You have to hand pollinate more stuff because there's not very many pollinators. The other one is Sweet Success. This is like an English style. Once again, parthenocarpic, so I don't have to pollinate. I got this one from Seeds and Such. This one I think I got off Amazon. Or I just don't remember. I only got, what is that, 3 seeds left. I'm gonna have to buy some more. They're hybrids, so I can't save the seeds of them. For the kale, I'm only gonna do one, and it's gonna be called the White Russian. I'm trying to find a frilly one. I like the, what is it called? The Prism kale, because I like how it tastes and I like the frilliness of it. Lacinato or dinosaur kale and the Red Russian are not really my favorite in terms of flavor. The Tuscan styles, they're not my favorite because the flavor is a little bit mustardy to me. I'm really sensitive to that. So I'm trying some new ones. You know, I'm gonna try the Botanical Interest Epic Garden White Russian. We'll see if that's better than the Red Russian. I love to grow kohlrabi, so I'm growing Conan. This is now my new favorite type. But I will say that the Vienna, the green Vienna, is very comparable to this. I think this one grows just a tad bit faster, and I have the seeds, so I'm using it. Then we have all the lettuce, guys. I grow so much lettuce. Let me just show you, because it's a little ridiculous. I'm gonna grow this much lettuce. So let me go through them. The Salanovas you can get from Johnny Seeds. These are my favorite. I grow the Sweet Crisp, the Insize, red, green. I do all pelleted seeds, the Sweet Crisp, the green Insize, the red butter, the green butter. I love Salanova, and they're pelleted, but the seeds don't hold very long. They stop germinating after about 1.5 to 2 years. They don't hold very well. So these are all the ones that I bought last year, so I got to get these in the ground and used. So those are definitely going to have a spot in my garden. Then I bought a bunch of Southern Exposure ones. I actually got this idea from Jacqueline. She's my little buddy over at the Wild Floridian. She's another YouTuber, and she grew a bunch of lettuce. I came to visit her, and her lettuce was gorgeous. And I was like, what are these? And she told me they were a bunch that she got from Southern Exposure. So I went on to Southern Exposure and picked out a bunch of lettuces. I haven't grown all these, so I'm really interested. Calura, Winter Density, Sierra, Anui, Quinyin. I don't know how to pronounce that. Salad Bowl, I've grown that. Queensland, I have grown the Cosmo. I like that one. And then surprisingly, this is an iceberg. This is a Hanson improved crisp head lettuce. So it's very similar to an iceberg. A little bit looser of a head, but I've actually been able to grow this to a head here in Florida, which I was told was impossible, but that particular variety I can do. So I'm growing that one and I love it. It's not like the iceberg in the grocery store that feels like it has no flavor. This one is like a romaine and an iceberg had a baby because the leaves are amazing. I am gonna grow some more of my brown mustard. This is, I call it brown mustard, but it's actually the Florida broadleaf mustard. I don't like the taste of the leaves so much. And I'm growing it actually for the seed. I like the brown mustard seed that it produces. It makes great mustard and it makes great pickling spice. So that's what I'm doing. So now let's talk peas, because I grew a bunch of English peas or shelling peas last early spring. So I don't need any more of that. We're still eating through them. So I want sugar snap or snow pea. So I'm going to do the Oregon Giant snow pea. I've been into that. I have sugar snap pea. I have dwarf sugar, I think dwarf sugar gray. I have some more snap peas. And then I'm doing the sugar magnolia, which is a purple one, which I did grow this last winter and it did really well. So I'm gonna do all those. These are all the ones that you can eat the pods. So that's why I wanna grow these. Earlier in the video where I was talking about the manual planting, and I was talking about companion plants for the different beds. I said I'm going to grow a bunch of radishes around my squash. That's going to be watermelon radishes. I usually do daikon radishes, but I'm actually out of seed and I didn't want to buy seed, and I had I don't know what, I got a ton of watermelon radishes, and I've grown those before, and so we're going to grow all those around it. Then we have all of our squashes. I mentioned during that part of the video that I want to do some more summer patty pans, so I'm going with the Scallop Peter Pan Hybrid. I'm also doing Dunja, which I have found to be the best one here for Florida. I got these from Johnny Seeds. You can see like a theme happening here. If it is a vegetable that is difficult to grow here in Florida, I tend to go with hybrids, and I get my hybrids from Johnny Seeds. I feel like they're more predictable is what it is, and they work just so well. Another one that I'm doing is something called, I think this is tomorrowwoods.com. I only bought this one seed from it. It's called a gray zucchini. I'm gonna try that again. Here's the Trivoli spaghetti squash that I mentioned earlier in the video, and here's that angel hair that I mentioned. I'm also doing a table king, but you can also do a table queen acorn squash. These are good. That's from M.I. Gardner. Here's the table acorn. I saved these myself. So that's pretty much all the vegetables that I will be planting this fall and this spring, all the different varieties. And you could see when I showed you the seed packet where I got those seeds from. If you have any specific questions, maybe about some of the ones where I saved the seeds, just head down to the comments and leave me a note. I hope that helped you with your planning, whether that is done manually or whether that's done digitally, and gives you some idea of some of my absolute favorite varieties to grow down here in Florida and what has worked for me and where I got them from. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, guys. I really appreciate it. I love it. Planning is my favorite. As you could probably see, I'm a little bit of a geek about it. I hope you enjoyed yourself just as much as I enjoyed myself. Make sure to give me a like, subscribe so you can see the future videos on mosquitoes and also how all of these are going to do in the garden in fall and winter. Happy gardening, guys.